Good afternoon, Evil, and I will tell you one story of a good viewing. The moment Ethan slipped on the gleaming VR headset, reality fractured. A cold whisper brushed his ear, though no one stood nearby. The digital landscape shimmered into focus, endless black corridors lined with twisted, metal arches. Each arch bore grotesque faces, their mouths ajar in silent screams. Heart-pounding, Ethan realized he could move, but escape was no longer optional. The game had him in its grip. He took a tentative step forward. The floor beneath him was slick as if coated in fresh rain. Shadows writhed at the edge of his vision, slender figures darting just beyond the glow of his flashlight. When he shone the beam toward one, it vanished. Turning quickly, he caught the reflection of a pale face behind him, empty eye sockets leaking static. He whirled and nothing was there. Panic gnawed at his ribcage. He tried to remove the headset, but the unit fused to his skull with an electric jolt. The screen in his periphery flashed red, 0 lives. A distorted voice crackled through his headphones. Game over is closer than you think. He froze, every nerve alight, realizing he was no longer playing for fun, he was playing to survive. As he advanced, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. Ceiling-high shelves held lifeless mannequins clad in tattered clothing. Each bore his likeness, Ethan's jeans, his worn sneakers, even his favorite band t-shirt. On every mannequin's torso, the precise moment of his death blinked in digital red, 23 minutes and 45 seconds. A low groan rattled the rafters above, and with a crash, one mannequin toppled, its plastic eye rolling on the floor toward Ethan. He sprinted away, breath ragged, but the walls stretched and twisted behind him like living things. Footsteps echoed ahead. 9, 7, 4. They slowed, then stopped. Silence pressed against his eardrums. He blinked, and blood slicked the walls, dripping toward him in slow, deliberate pulses. Beneath it writhed dozens of elongated fingers, dragging themselves across the concrete. He gagged, stomach lurching, but his legs obeyed, carrying him deeper into the nightmare. The next chamber was a child's bedroom, paint peeling in large chunks. A single crib occupied the center, a mobile overhead spinning without wind, its painted animals staring with dead eyes. From inside came a soft sobbing. Ethan's hand shook as he reached for the crib's edge, expecting horrors until a tiny voice whispered his name. He recoiled only to see his own face staring back at him, a miniature, weeping clone, fingers pressed to cracked acrylic glass. The clone's tears teemed crimson. It mouthed words Ethan couldn't hear, but on the screen above his head, red letters scrawled, "Proceed or perish." Suddenly, the crib's bars vanished. The clone lunged, hands too long and spindly, slashing the air inches from Ethan's face. He ducked, adrenaline flaring, and bolted through a newly appeared doorway. Beyond lay a forest lit by an ashen moon. Trees bleached white rose like sentinels, each branch gnarled into clawed hands. Ethan's flashlight flickered out. Darkness swallowed him whole. In the silence, the forest breathed, exhaling cold mist that licked at his ankles. He fumbled for his phone, no signal, no light. All he had was the headset's menu, a blinking button labeled Continue. He selected it with a trembling finger. Instantly, the ground beneath him vanished. He plummeted, screaming, through an infinite void. Then impact, bone-crushing, deafening. When he opened his eyes, he lay prone in a circular room with floor-to-ceiling mirrors. Each reflection was twisted, one with its jaw ripped open, another with legs gouged out, yet all wore Ethan's terrified expression. The overhead PA crackled, playing a child's lullaby slowed to half speed, warping every note into a dirge. He staggered upright. A door appeared behind him, a brass plaque reading Exit. Relief surged. He reached for the handle, but before his fingers could touch it, the mirrors shattered outward in spiderweb cracks. Shards floated, glowing like ghostly lanterns, rearranging themselves into a monolithic screen. On it played the last seconds of his life, Ethan sprinting down a street, then frozen as a car barreled toward him. The car bore no driver. Heat radiated from the screen. A voice, soft and insistent, murmured, "You cannot die here." The shattered glass reassembled, sealing him in. Panic rose like bile. The screen flickered and went black, then white. Blinding. When his vision cleared, he was back at the corridor's entrance, mannequin chamber, leaking shadows, dripping blood. His legs burned, throat raw, as if he had never moved at all. A chilling realization took shape. The game was looping, but each cycle reshaped the horrors. Deeper, sharper, and more personal. He'd faced mannequins, next would come something he could not predict, and he had no way to ready himself. His pulse hammered. He considered flipping the headset off manually, but the electric bond pulsed again, preventing any removal. The headset had become his coffin. Summoning courage, Ethan advanced. This time, instead of a mannequin, he found a row of windows, each overlooking scenes from his past. Childhood home, first love, moments of regret. In each view, he saw himself staring back, accusing. A whisper, "You belong to us." He slammed his fist against the glass of the first window, only to see his hand burst through the pane, fingers growing jagged like claws. He recoiled in horror. A distant alarm sounded, slow, rhythmic, counting down. 3, 2, 1. The screens turned to static as the corridor walls began to close, grinding inward with machinery's roar. Ethan's breaths came in ragged gasps. He dove to the side just as steel beams snapped shut, sending splinters into the ground. The timer reset to 5 o'clock, then began ticking again. With every tick, the air thickened. His heart became a sledgehammer. He ran toward the next opening, determined to break the cycle, though he knew the game responded to his fear. Each turn brought more grotesqueries. Limbs that bent backwards, whispers that knew his deepest secrets, eyes in the dark that watched him even when he held them at bay. Ahead, a new chamber waited, its threshold lit by pulsing red light, as if beckoning him to his doom. And Ethan, trapped between terror and defiance, took the step forward, into the unknown depths of this living nightmare. Ethan stepped into the red-lit chamber and the door slammed shut behind him with a deafening clang. The air was thick and metallic, pressing against his lungs. Flickering lights revealed a staircase spiraling downward into smoky darkness. Each step he took groaned as though warning him to turn back. He clutched the headset, feeling its electric hum pulse in time with his heartbeat. Midway down, he heard scratching from below, like fingernails raking against concrete. He froze, toes hanging over the edge. A raspy voice whispered from the gloom, "You can't hide." The scratching grew louder, then stopped abruptly. He waited until he could stand it no more, then resumed his descent, every nerve screaming. At the base of the stairs lay a puddle of ink-black water reflecting no light. Ripples spread across its surface before a pale hand shot upward, dripping water onto the floor. He jumped back, tripped over his own feet, and fell into the pool. Ice-cold water flooded over his legs. He screamed, but the water swallowed the sound, muffling him as he struggled to his feet. Stumbling out, soaked and stunned, Ethan found himself in a vast greenhouse. Vines with thorn-like barbs climbed the glass walls, pulsating as if alive. Giant flowers opened and closed rhythmically, releasing spores that glowed like embers in the dim. As he crossed the gravel path, the flower's petals snapped shut behind him, sealing off escape. The spores coalesced into shapes, half-formed faces contorted in agony. They drifted toward him, hovering at eye level. Their mouths opened soundlessly, and a cold breeze carried the echo of tortured screams. Ethan backed away, but roots shot from the soil, wrapping around his ankles. He kicked frantically, ripping leaves and bark as he tried to free himself. With a surge of adrenaline, he ripped one foot free and dashed toward a glass wall. He smashed through it, cutting his arms on jagged shards, and spilled into a black corridor beyond. His clothes clung to him, torn and wet. He let out a ragged laugh, horrified relief that he was still alive. The corridor ended at a room filled with TV monitors. Each played a looped clip of Ethan's worst moments. The time he betrayed his best friend, the moment he watched his father suffer in silence, the phone call he never answered at the hospital. The images glitched and twisted, faces morphing into grinning skulls that laughed at him in unison. Their voices overlapped into a screeching chorus. Regret, guilt, fear. He wanted to turn away, but his eyes were locked on a single screen showing the present moment. Ethan in the VR chamber, soaked and bloodied. The POV was from behind, revealing a tall figure standing just out of Ethan's sight. A humanoid silhouette with elongated limbs, wearing his face as a mask. It lifted one gloved hand and tapped the screen. The static cleared, and the figure stepped forward, toward the camera. Ethan stumbled back, heart hammering. The monitors cut out one by one until only one remained, displaying a bright red countdown, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Beneath it, a single word pulsed. Remember. A grid of lockboxes materialized around the timer, each etched with years. 1995, 2003, 2010, 2018. The word beneath each box changed constantly: sorrow, shame, loss, hope. He reached out to open a box labeled 2018 loss. The lid snapped open, and from within poured dozens of photographs. The funeral of someone he barely remembered, a friend cut too short. The pictures floated upward, circling him like bats before igniting into sparks that rained down, scorching his skin. He screamed, clutching at his arms as the flames seared nothing but pain, yet left no burn marks, just the sting of memory. The countdown hit 1 minute. The lockboxes slammed shut, locking in his memories. Suddenly, the floor shook and the walls dissolved, revealing a room filled with mirrors once more, only this time they encircled him completely. The reflection was not his own but the masked figure from the monitors, reaching through the glass as if to pull him in. The countdown reached 10 seconds. 10 seconds. He couldn't breathe. A new voice barked in his ear, "Choose." The mirrors shimmered and in each one appeared a different exit. One showed a bright field under a sunrise, another, the cold hospital corridor he had once tried to flee, a third, his childhood home filled with laughter. Each exit was a memory twisted into an illusion of freedom. He closed his eyes, hearing the masked figure pound on the glass from all sides. When he reopened them, the countdown read 3 seconds. Instinct seized him. He lunged toward the hospital corridor mirror. Glass shattered as he passed through and he staggered into sterile white walls lit by fluorescent lights humming overhead. Relief washed over him when he saw the sign, "Exit." He sprinted down the hall only to find the corridors endless and identical. Room after room bore the same pale linoleum, the same flickering bulbs. Doors marked Room 101, Room 102, but none opened. Each time he pressed against one, it dissolved into static and whispered, "Not yet." Behind him, footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate. Ethan spun around and saw the masked figure at the end of the hallway, its mask cracking to reveal a mouth of jagged wires. It raised an arm and pointed. Wherever it pointed, the corridor bent, walls twisting like eldritch geometry until the figure was always just out of reach. His breath came in ragged gasps. He raced forward, following the figure's gesture. He turned corner after corner, but always emerged into the same corridor. He could feel the game probing his mind, feeding on his desperation. He clenched his fists, teeth grinding. He refused to let the game consume him. With a roaring exhalation, Ethan ripped off the headset. Pain lanced through his temples as the connection tried to hold him. He yanked harder, and the world around him fractured in fiery shards. Then blackness. When he awoke, he lay on a cold, metal floor. Around him were dozens of other players, all bound to identical headsets, eyes wide with terror. The masks of their headsets glowed faintly red. A booming voice filled the chamber, "Welcome to Level 2. Ethan's heart sank as he realized escape was still a mirage. The game had not ended, it had only begun anew, deeper and more insidious than before. He crawled to his feet, shoulders trembling, and looked around at the faces of strangers bound to the same fate. In that instant, he understood his true adversary was not the masked figure or the haunted corridors but the game itself, and it was far from done with him. With trembling resolve, he stepped forward, determined to fight whatever horrors awaited. The chamber doors ground open, revealing a new labyrinth of nightmares. And as the red glow of the headsets pulsed in unison, Ethan took his first step into the next hell. Thank you very much and see you all in the next video.